Welcome back to Fight News Now, and it's time for 3 rounds as Robin Black joins me at this point, and we're looking ahead to Saturday's Fight Pass card as UFC returns to Dublin, Ireland, the first time since 2009, if you recall, the Dan Henderson-Rich Franklin fight that headlined that particular card. As we discuss Fight Pass right now, this is maybe the one that has the most interest, I would say, going into a Fight Pass card. As much as Conor McGregor, just the atmosphere alone, I feel, in Dublin is going to be something special for a UFC event, which, when you have so many shows, special is always a good thing.
Absolutely. And what are we learning here? We're learning that stars matter. This guy's a star. I mean, you may not like him. That makes him a star. You may love him. That makes him a star. Some fighters hate him. That makes him a star. He's exciting in the cage. That makes him a star. And you're right. That will get people on Fight Pass. That will get people. It gives them a purpose to actually go back to a country they haven't been to in a long time. So stars matter in this sport.
And I would say that at this point in time, Robin, I don't think the fights in UFC have ever been better. I don't think the athletes have ever been at this certain level. But fans, they gravitate to personalities in large amounts, and I think there's a giant opening that Conor McGregor saw here, that, listen, I want people to care about my fights. You can go back and watch Randy Couture and Tim Sylvia on mute, and it's a pretty dull fight if you don't know the context and how incredible that fight was live. People are drawn to personalities, and that gets them engaged in fights, and Conor McGregor, thus far, is 2 for 2 in the UFC in terms of, look at where he is, fight number 3, headlining a card in his home country, and it's sold out on Saturday.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I need to be hit over the head with this because I will take any 2 fighters and just watch the science of their fighting. But I'm not average, and I got to understand that the audience really loves to hear the story. You came from a tough upbringing. You faced challenges. You have conflict with other fighters. All of that stuff really, really does matter, and I'm starting to get it. It takes me a while. This kind of thing, you know, it's a little too focused on the fighting itself because that's what I love about it. But we all love fighting for very different reasons. Conor McGregor, yes, he seized an opportunity, but there's also an element, I think, where you can't, any guy, you know, Cole Miller tries to talk smack on the mic, it just doesn't really work, and that's no knock against him. It's very hard to do. The guys who kind of come out and become stars, whether it's Ronda Rousey, whether it's Cain Velasquez, whether it's Conor McGregor, they kind of have this star power to begin with.
It's very true, and it's that certain charisma that I think the audience can detect, and even more so when someone's trying to force that upon themselves. Originally, it was going to be Cole Miller fighting Conor McGregor on Saturday. In steps Diego Brandao as a replacement, and for this particular fight, he has uprooted himself from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and with Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn, gone to San Antonio, Texas, where he's now living with his brothers to get ready for this fight. Diego Brandao, he came off The Ultimate Fighter Season 14, and we've seen some impressive performances from him, but someone that later in fights, you can certainly see his conditioning has been a factor, and Conor will tell you that he can go all night long fighting, and if cardio is what this comes down to, it's Conor's fight.
Yeah, really, it comes down to, you know, what can Brandao do? How can he step up? Who is he? Can he show what kind of man he is? Is he the elite mental strength kind of man? And, you know, when he came out, you know, it's interesting to go back to your roots sometimes, because when he did go to Jackson Winklejohn, he didn't perform well. He didn't make weight. He seemed to have some mental issues with Poirier threatening to cut his throat and gashing.
You know, little things, little hiccups like, along the way.
Like gashing somebody's throat open and exposing the arteries. But, you know, little things like that. And it's an interesting one because sometimes what happens is you go into these great camps, you feel pressure. You're not at home. You know, you feel the pressure being somewhere else. How's his English? Is it perfect or is it 80%? You know, you're in a room with a whole bunch of guys always trying to prove something. Instead, you go back to where you're the alpha. You're back to where everybody's behind you. For some people, yes men are a bad thing. For others, they're a good thing. But, I mean, no matter how you slice it, Diego Brandao needs to be the great Diego Brandao that he was when he first hit the UFC scene.
And we've seen so many times in the past where there is an audience favorite and an audience villain, for lack of a better term. And this is a completely different dynamic here in Ireland, where Diego Brandao will not be disliked. He will be hated on Saturday night. And he strikes me, a lot of fighters, I think, as soon as the fight begins, that stuff doesn't rattle them. Diego Brandao, I'm kind of curious if this does rattle him, just in the week leading up to it, where this is the guy that is coming into Ireland, and there is not going to be one Diego Brandao supporter in that audience.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things on this. One, we've made comments about the Brazilian fans, again, threatening to slit the throat of the fighter down there. Nobody threatens to slit throats as well as the Brazilians, except for the Irish. The Irish are gonna be able to elevate it to that level. And nobody wants to see anybody in the audience get involved in any real weird scuffle. But that kind of thing does elevate it. So what does Brandao do? Is he preparing for that? Because you can't just go, well, that's not going to bother me, and then go strutting down there as they're yelling, perhaps spitting, throwing things at you, singing songs about hating you. Who knows what they're doing? You literally have to prepare for it. If you've prepared for it in a way that you're going to use it to inspire you, great, but that's very tough to do.
Let's quickly discuss Conor McGregor's training partner, Gunnar Nelson. He will be competing against Zach Cummings. Gunnar Nelson, I mean, sky is really the limit for him at this point. I'm picking him in this fight. I think that he is somebody that could really be a force at 170 pounds, but much like Conor McGregor, it's still very early in his career.
I think Gunnar Nelson has the same, not the same, but a lot of hype himself, but his is around people's feeling about his skills, not about his mustache or how he talks or his cool suits. And that's a powerful thing. When everybody, the rumbling in the people in the know is that this guy's a top 10 guy in the weighting, and I think that's true. He's facing a guy who is an overachiever, but he's not going to overachieve on Saturday night.
Yes, all of that, plus Brad Pickett and Ian McCall. It's a great card on Saturday in Dublin, Ireland. We're taking a short break, but when we come back, it's Priscilla Caripan with The Shift and this week's viral video.